So I'm going to start talking again about this Russell Brand baptism thing, because I like to think about things like that. I find it very curious why anybody would be religious. There's so many philosophical, existential, psychological, spiritual questions that we'd like to ask some of us. And I wonder, out of all the millions of people that Russell Brand's got watching him, how many are going to be asking questions that I'm going to be asking now? And some people might think that it's nobody else's business. Well, he is public property, really. Anybody that's got such a high profile, that's in the media like that, you know, that actually owns a variety of a media company, well, I mean, you're going to be scrutinised, and people are going to be speaking about you, and you're not going to have any privacy. That's part of the course. And so I did mention in the video yesterday that I wrote him an email asking if he'd like to speak about it, but doubtless, you know, he wouldn't want to speak with me because he'll get thousands of cranks like me sending him requests every single day. You know, up in that realm, people are going to go on the safe side. They're going to go with established people in varying media circles, and you know, it's all going to be a whole lot more clinical than this talking in a graveyard, some dude with a green beard, you know. But when he started struggling as he did with all his varying addictions, I think that he would have very much welcomed somebody like me to talk sense with, talk on a level, talk open. I don't want anything from him. I'm just curious. So I'm going to be speaking about things that I think I know about him from watching him for 30 years of my life. And so, as I said in one of the videos, he comes from a broken home, brought up by his mother predominantly, but I'm assuming that she wasn't that loving or doting or nurturing. Maybe she was too busy working, trying to keep a roof over his head, you know, but evidently he never felt nurtured from that relationship, and he was looking for nurturing elsewhere. And so we started to look in other things, in copious sexual relationships, trying to replace the love of the mother that he never had. And they were all predominantly vacuous, and he very easily become infatuated. This stuff he's been open with, you know, and he's spoken about. He'd go into one infatuation and that'd be over in a short period of time, then he'd be straight into another one. And then, of course, all the varying drugs, heroin and all that sort of stuff. So somebody who was emotionally destabilized. And one thing that's very significant that he said when he was announcing his baptism was that he felt, when, you see, he's got 3 children and 2 girls and a boy, and the boy was born with heart problems, and so they had to operate very quickly, and of course that terrified him. But what he said was, whilst that was going on, he just didn't feel that he was getting what he wanted to get from anybody around him. He couldn't get it from his 2 existing healthy children. He couldn't get it from his wife, his friends and other extended family. He couldn't get what he was looking for from anybody. And so I think that was the tipping point whereby he decided that, well, he's going to give himself to Christ then. And I think he's been very naive, and I'll speak about why I think that is. Because he's just given himself up to his own delusions. Now, if you can't find solace in yourself, then you are subject to all different sorts of beguiling machinations of people offering you comfort, you know. And we all have heard about the cults that lure vulnerable people in. Christianity is a cult. Of course it is. All religions are cults. Look to see what the definition of a cult is, and they exactly fit the bill. They are cults. And they per se don't offer nothing. The Bible doesn't offer nothing. The only thing that anyone could gain from giving themselves to Christ is kind of like they give up their autonomy. They give up their thinking ability. They give up their rational thought. And they just go, oh, I've just lost it, Jesus. I can't do anything. You know, I can't find love in here. I can't find love out there. Please, God up in the sky, give me love. Fill my void. And that's what Russell Brand has done. He's now asking Jesus to fill his void. For many years, he was very steeped in Eastern philosophy. And he used to read verses out of Krishnamurti books, and he's very well read and all this sort of stuff, and he was very into that. And I think for a long time he found solace in Eastern philosophy with his meditation. But Russell Brand's got the variety of personality which never anything is going to be enough, because he's too whimsical, and he's in and out of this infatuation, that infatuation. And if you look at his life, you know, with all of the things he's been doing, it's very flighty, all over the place, seeking attention, always seeking attention. Being a comedian, look, anyone that's a comedian desperately needs attention. They need to be liked, they need to be laughed at, they need to be enjoyed. And if we look into the psyche of all comedians, we're going to find this. And Robin Williams, he was no exception, and he used to speak about it, just being empty, just being vacuous. The funny man on the stage, you know, for 5 minutes, and of course he started doing stand-up comedy, the same as you know, lots of actors do, like Jim Carrey, stand-up comedian. These people, they need something more. They can't find it inside. Eventually, Jim Carrey's found it inside. Because after all those years he spent in Hollywood, he finally realised that it wasn't there. And he's gone into the mystical now, and he's found it. And I'm pretty sure he found it in psychedelics, or he found it in deep traumatic experiences. He's had a lot of those. And so when you are deeply compromised, you have to look inside, because you can't find it outside. And anybody that's always begging for God, well, you got to find it yourself. You got to do it yourself, and that's the fact. Ain't no God doing nothing. Ain't no Jesus doing nothing. And when people think, yes, God's done this, and yes, Jesus done that, I've spoke to scores of Christians, and I said, well, so why do you have this faith? Oh, because you know, Jesus is helping me. How is he helping you? Well, you know, it just helps me. Don't you just think that you just think he's helping you? What proof? What veracity? What evidence? Oh, I just know. Ha 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 ha. I just know. Really? You're under self-hypnosis. And that's what all these fools, misguided fools, who fall into the trap of religions are subject to. And of course, look, we will all see this in the Muslim faith, won't we? We will see how they all get trapped, how they all get coerced and bullied, manipulated into that faith, and how it's heinous through and through. But when they're in it, oh, you know, don't you dare say anything against Allah or Muhammad, otherwise, you know, this peaceful, loving God is going to want to stab you 27 times. You know, and that's it. I've never seen a single one of these peaceful Muslims that wouldn't get very violently angry when you read things out of their book, the Quran, that they've never looked at and they don't want to face. Absolutely vile and disgusting. And it's the same with Christianity, it's the same with all these religions. They're vile people, through and through. And the reason why I find them, you know, so vile is because they're deceptive. They're vile, deceptive, and they don't offer anything. They just want to gain recruits into their cult. And that's what the church is. And right over there now, behind me, there's a church, one of the billions all over the world, owned by these nefarious institutions. It's a good lump of land, it's a good building. What's it being used for? Nothing. It's just standing there vacant, empty. And for a couple of hours once a week, on a Sunday, a couple of old ladies with blue rinse hair go inside, drink a cup of tea, have a couple of biscuits. They haven't got a clue what the chaplain's saying. They doubtless don't read the Bible. They just couldn't get their heads around it, even if they did. And they just go for a cup of tea and a biscuit, and to see Gertrude and Beatrice, and that's it. And then they go back again, you know, wait to die. And so, what's Russell Brand done? Well, he's clutching at straws again. He knows well enough that through Alcohol Anonymous, he's been, you know, involved in that for a score of years. That could give him nothing save for helping him to find the strength within. It all came from within. And sometimes, you know, going to Alcoholics Anonymous or Drug Anonymous and all these things, you get people to hold your hand through difficult times, and there's always someone there to hold your hand and, you know, have a conversation with. Okay, that's cool, you know, that's what friends are for. But it wasn't the institution itself by any magic, and, you know, they even need to lean on a higher being, a God of your own choice. You choose your God of your own choice, because it's very difficult to do it on your own if you are vacuous, if you've been destroyed inside, if you haven't had the love, if you haven't had the nurturing, if you aren't a solid human being, if you're only half, if you're only empty, then you're always going to be looking for something to fill that. And we try to fill it in many, many ways. And, you know, my elder brother, 2.5 years older than me, and he was just running around one sexual conquest after the other for the vast majority of his life. And my old man says, you know, years and years ago, just trying to replace his old woman, because she bailed out on us when he was 6 and I was 4, left 4 young children. She'd had enough. She done one. And so, yeah, he was messed up. And he tried to fill the gap with that level of love. You know, I suppose I've filled that gap in the early days of travelling and experience, and always wanting to live dangerously. I lived very, very dangerously for many, many years, and I was never really living unless I was on the precipice of death. And I write about lots of these things in my book. And so that's how I did it. And of course there was, you know, several years when, you know, I tried to fill the gap with sexual conquests of any variety, you know. But, you know, none of it ever did. And so I finally found myself via looking in. And I was fortunate in that I could do that. I can actually sit in meditation for hours, and I just find it peaceful, beautiful and easy. Whereas those who can't do that, well, that's not an option. So what else are they going to do? Drink, smoke, do drugs, have as many sexual partners as they can, buy things, you know, clothes, toys, cars, but it doesn't do it. None of it does it. And so look at Russell Brand. He's got everything, and he's still empty. Well, that's sad, isn't it? It's really, really sad. And so when we look back at the reasons, because of his tumultuous, destructive, non-nurturing upbringing, well, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. And he's tried, Lord, he's tried, and he's still trying. And I hope for at least a few years he thinks that that works. But what actually is happening when he's praying now to Jesus and thinking that Jesus is in him now because he's been baptized? And you know, it says in the New Testament, when you believe in me, I will enter into you and you will enter into me. And so I looked into that deeply, and I wrote about it in my book. And I wanted to know what that meant. I wanted to know what belief was, what faith was. I wanted to know what the notions and concepts of God was. I wanted to know the veracity of Jesus. If you did believe, if you did pray and open your mind and heart, then what would happen? Well, what happens is, people, and I discovered this, we self-hypnotize ourselves. And, you know, I've visited several pastors in my life, and, you know, I wanted to know things about why they were pastors, why they devoted their life, and, you know, to what I consider to be a fiction, and I still do. And none of them could tell me remotely convincingly why they did it. They never had any religious experiences. I've had, you know, a dozen religious experiences, very convincing ones, and yet I'm still not a believer. Because I think there's a whole lot more to this world than pies in the sky and fictions. And these people that wrote these books, they knew it too. And so what is Russell doing when he's praying to Jesus and he's thinking that now Jesus has entered him? Well, I mean, this Jesus dude, wow. He can enter into anybody, anywhere. Oh yes, that's the Spirit of Christ. Well, didn't Jesus say in the Bible, truly I say unto you, the kingdom of God is within you all, and everything I can do, you can do more. And didn't he say that in the book of Thomas, that I am a twin, I'm your twin, we're all twins? You see, the Bible has been very selective what books it's put in. It never put anything in from the book of Thomas. Maybe they never had it at the time, because the book of Thomas came out of the Nag Hammadi scrolls, which were found in 1947. So, but they should include it now, but they don't, because it's a very, very different Jesus in the book of Thomas. And indoctrinated Christians will always dismiss, oh, that was written by, and that doesn't mean, oh, please, just, you know, wake up. That's what I say, just wake up. Just stop being childish and silly billies with your silly indoctrination, your fantasy, what you want to believe. You see, look, belief is a very, very powerful thing. And if you're empty inside and if you can't find any love or joy from this earth, then you have to pray up to a pie in the sky and believe in an afterlife. It's very, very sad, but there's millions of people around like that. So then, religion serves them in a little way, because it gives them an opportunity to create their own fantasy, and to pray to their own fantasy, and to, you know, imagine that their prayers are being answered and feel warm and cuddly inside. Well, if you imagine that Mr. Blobby or the spaghetti monster was benevolent and has got a beautiful place for you up in the sky where you're going to go to, then that would serve exactly the same. Exactly the same. It's just human psychology, people. And so when I look at this, I just think it's stupid and childish when educated people fall foul of their own fantasies because they can't find satiation in their lives. That's sad. People can't find satiation in this beautiful world. There's a billion things which can bring you joy and fill you with joy every single day, and you can't find it in your children, in your relationships, sitting here in this garden listening to the birds, looking around at the miracle. You can't find the joy that's going to fill you up brimming with joy. I think these people are sick. I think they're ill, mentally ill. They have to be if they can't find this level of joy. It's everywhere. It's all around. This whole thing is a miracle. This is heaven. What do we want to do? Do we want to curse the life we live in every single day of our lives, and thinking that, you know, when you're dead, then that's when you're going to get respite from this evil, and that's when you're going to have joy, and you're going to sit with Jesus, and you're going to walk with Jesus. Goody, goody, goody. Have they ever stopped to imagine what that means? How would that be? I know, deep in the root of human consciousness is beauty, benevolence and love, because I've found it, I've seen it, I've experienced it on many occasions. When we go into a deep meditation, we enter into such a beautiful realm, and I've been speaking about this in recent times. I've been speaking about it for 10 years, but you go into this like cartoon realm where it's just filled with joy, and you've got cartoon characters of all different unimaginable shapes and sizes, and the whole realm is pleasurable and joyous and loving and endearing. It is wonderful, and that's at the root of our consciousness. I found it, and I asked other people on my channel if they have found it, and they said yes, they've been there too also. And you can get there by taking substances, by DMT. What happens when you take DMT? Well, you get there quicker than you would normally, because it's the DMT in our bodies that is doing it. I swear, because when I am experiencing these sort of visions, they're almost exactly the same. There's just variances. It's like you say one tree is exactly the same as... No tree is exactly the same as the other. No DMT experience is exactly the same, but they're all the similar variety. And so when you take DMT in large amounts, then you get a more heightened state of the same thing that you could find in dreams, or in a meditation experience, or in a Wim Hof breathing exercise. There's lots of ways you can get raise your DMT, you see. And so, I mean, I just thought I'd put it out there and see what you think. And of course I'll get the odd Christian who's still around. Most of them are in the snake pit. If I get these obnoxious Christians, repent, and you're evil, and this Satan's got you, repent to the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's like, oh my God, really? Lock these people up because they're dangerous, and they're most certainly dangerous around your kids. I would never trust a Christian around my children. I just wouldn't. How could you trust somebody with such a perverted mind? They've got to be deeply sick. And yeah, some people may think I'm speaking harshly. Oh, you know, most Christians are all right. They're not. No indoctrinated person is all right. And I'm sure you'd all be the first to say everybody on Jim Jones's camp wasn't all right. Anybody in Charles Manson's cult wasn't all right. No, they're dangerous. Christians are dangerous. Muslims are dangerous. You know Muslims are dangerous, don't you? You'll all agree with that. Christians is no different, people. They're all dangerous. very, very dangerous, because they just don't have a footing in reality. They live in a very, very peculiar, bizarre place. And I know if ever I'm going to be attacked, it's always by religious people. It's never by anybody else. The odd time, oh, your ego, your ego, your ego. You know, if I've rattled someone's cage and they've got some jealousy about how I live my life, and if I'm putting people down, like I have, of course, in the past, because I put people down in the hope that they realise how low they are and look around to see if they could possibly raise themselves up. So there's a method in my madness. And I don't mind being attacked by text. I mean, attacked by text, it doesn't hurt me. It really doesn't. It doesn't have any effect on me at all. I can just see through people's pain. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, whatever I'm doing is working. Because when they've done this, they're going to think about that. And hopefully, you know, they'll hear another voice in their head, which will be the voice of reason. And then they go, oh yeah, the reason why I hated him is because he was right. But now I know he was right, and I'm going to try and do something about it. I've had lots of people tell me, I hated you, I wanted to do this and do that. But then, you know, upon watching lots more of your videos and contemplating, I realised that, you know, what you're about. And you just start trying to help, and there's no venom. There's no venom in anything I say. It's not my intention to cause people undue duress. It is my intention to shake you, to have you look at yourselves, to have you look at your stupid belief systems and realise it's just all seated in your own fantasy. So you may as well just fantasise about Mr. Blobby, fantasise about anything. But, you know, don't be, you know, repent Jesus Christ and, you know, forcing it onto people and condemning everybody else because they're not in your cult. Don't be doing that. That's what I'm saying. And so, Muzzlebrand, he's always like, you know, I'm always like, you know, I'm trying to build a unity. I don't like division. And I know you don't like a division and all this sort of thing. Well, and then he goes and joins a cult. How does that work, Russell? You've just gone and caused a division, a very deep one between any Muslims watching you, for a start, haven't you? Do you think they're going to be comfortable now watching you? It's like a Christian watching Satan. They're not going to do it, are they? So, pretty sure that any Muslims you've got watching you are no longer going to be watching. And I think they're going to be feeling very out of sorts. They're going to be looking somewhere else. And even if you're not a Muslim, well, if you're an atheist, now, well, people like me, you know, I held Russell in very high regard. And I still do. I just see his failings. We've all got failings. And I'm sure he'll grow out of it. Because that's what he does, that's his nature. He has these infatuations, and then, you know, he moves his goalpost, and he'll do something else. But it's curious how he hasn't found his own soul, which fills him up with all the meditation that he's done, and all the reading, and all the high-profile people he's spoken to, and all the experience he's had. I would have thought I truly thought he had found it via his meditation, to be fair. And it's quite a shock that now he never found it. How can you throw all that wisdom out? How can you throw your rational thinking out? Because Buddhist philosophy, spiritual philosophy, is seated in rational thought and wisdom. It's not premised in any belief system. It's seated in your own introspection. What you have found in your life and what you consider to be a reality. And what Buddhist philosophy states that there's only one reality, and that's the awareness. Everything else is fiction. Evidently that wasn't good enough for Russell. The fiction was still empty. So he had an empty fiction. You know, he entered into a paradox, because albeit he must have understood that this reality is all Maya and the human is a fiction, and the only thing that is real is awareness stroke consciousness. But when you are conscious, if you've had a troubled childhood, then you're going to feel empty. And that's it, it's a trap, isn't it? And that's why Buddhists say, well, you don't think. You go into your meditation, and even when you're doing your everyday things, you're present, you're in the now, you're in the now, you're in the now, you're in the now. You're not dwelling on the past. You're not dwelling on the emptiness and the cruelness of your childhood. You're present. So obviously Russell couldn't be present. You know, even though how busy he is, he still couldn't be present. His mind was still wandering off to the emptiness, the vacuousness of his spirit. Wow. That's quite something, people. What I'm saying here is quite fucking something. Have a think about what I'm saying. You know, I'm looking at it, I'm astounded. And I'd love to speak to him about it, to rationalise it, because he could rationalise it. He most certainly could. And I would say, what happened to all these years that you was deeply seated in Buddhist wisdom and philosophy? When you could speak for hours about that, and you could lay claim to the veracity, the efficacy, the reality of that nothingness, which is in the everythingness, which is awareness, then, you know, the only thing I can think of is he's going to have to say, but the emptiness was still there. It didn't take away the emptiness. Because this human experience, we have to be conscious for too much of it. Everything pertains to our consciousness. We've got to be conscious, you know, at least for 90% of our waking hours. We can get some respite when we can go into a deep meditation, and we can get some respite if we are in a walking, open-eyed meditation. But if we've got to concentrate on things and we've got to think about our lives, then the past comes into it, the present, you know, kind of slip away, and we look into the future a lot, aren't we? And it's kind of like, what am I going to do now? The things that you're doing now, it's for the future, for the future, for the future, and you're not present. You know, if we were present, if we were immersed in the now, then we would be getting gratitude from every single thing that we did, because it has to be satiating us. It's like if you go for a walk in the park. You don't go for a walk in the park to satiate you 1 hour later, do you? You go for a walk in the park to get satiated in the now. When you're having sex, you're getting satiated in the now. When you're eating, you're getting satiated in the now, you know. And so we have to look at these opportunities of being satiated in the now and capitalise on them. And when we can't then be in the now, we have to be projecting ourselves into the future. You know, if we're operating, you know, businesses and, you know, things like that, of course, we're all very future oriented, aren't we? And even these movie stars, they're doing all this wonderful stuff. Maybe it's not wonderful, maybe it's all green screen shit and it's boring, but some of it might be exciting. And but they're always looking towards, you know, the future. Did we get that cut? How's that cut done? As soon as, yeah, the director says, yeah, that's a wrap, then it's on to the next one. And it's not like, wow, that was brilliant. How many of you enjoyed that? Weren't we in the moment? No, it's the next one, it's the next one, it's the next one. And that's why these movie stars, they're empty, because that's how they live their lives. They're always living their lives for the glory, you know, for the movie festival, when they all sit there in their billion-dollar clothes, and then they have someone like Ricky Gervais or Russell Brand rip their fucking fantasy into pieces. Ricky Gervais, nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know, I don't know whether you've ever seen any of these Oscar things hosted by Russell Brand and Ricky Gervais, two brilliant British comedians. And you see all the movie stars, they're grimacing and trying to put on a false laugh. But the harsh reality is, they've looked forward to this venue. Is someone going to say that they're good? Is someone going to say that they've got this Oscar? And like Jim Carrey does a brilliant spoof of it, doesn't he? Oh, 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 in one of his movies, Dumb and Dumb, I think it is. Do they really value that shit? Where's the value in that? There's no value in it. They've sold their souls to Mephistopheles, and they are looking for the reward, but the reward isn't anywhere to be seen. They have sold their souls. There's no satiating their souls in this dimension. Do you hear me on this, people? That's how it works. And so they're all caught up in this fake reality. And people going into religion because they have been greatly disappointed with this world, because it isn't living up to their expectations, because all of the things they're getting isn't filling the void. And then it's kind of like, fuck materialism, fuck being a pop star, fuck being a movie star, I'm going to do drugs, I'm going to get out of my head because this is bullshit, it's all fucked up shit. How many just decide they're going to go into a monastery or, you know, go and live on an island and just fucking look within? How many of them? Do you think any of them can? There's not many. A few people, you know, look, like Mike Tyson, he's a classic example of, you know, he's found that certain something. He realised that all the rest of it was bullshit. And now he does all his podcasts and everything, talking about, you know, something that's more real, and that's, you know, lots of things, but it isn't the things he thought it was. You know, what is real? Well, it could be having great conversations with a friend at the time. It could be having great relationships. It's a great meal, or a pint of beer, or, you know, a walk in a park, or all these sort of things. Just the little things. Being present. They all pertain to the present, don't they? It's about being present, people. But what are people doing when they're praying to a pie in the sky? Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. What are they doing? They're saying, I am so lost, I am so vacuous, I am nothing, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm a piece of shit. The Father told us we're a piece of shit in the Old Testament. It's true, I'm a piece of shit. Please, Jesus, love me, give me some of your love. That's what it's about. Tell me, if you think it's anything else, tell me. I'm all ears, I really am. As far as I can see, that's what it's about. Please, can you, fiction up in the sky, fill my fucking void? Because I'm at the end of my tether and I'm just going to top myself. You know, this is the last resort. If I can't find it in religion, I'm fucking done here. And then I'm going to go to the Father. Then I'm going to go to heaven or paradise. But then, you know, they've got this quirk of fucking cool fate. And they say, well, if you take your own life, then you'll end up in purgatory forever. The Catholic Church have got this thing about suicide. They don't want you to do that. They want to own you for as long as your body will allow them to, before you can vacate this world. They ain't allowing you to vacate this world and take a shortcut into the promised land. No. You pay into the Catholic Church coffers for the rest of your lives. It's bullshit, people. From the fucking beginning to the end. Fucking bullshit. The only people that have had a handle on this thing here, what we call life, is those who have spent a good deal of time on their own, and they maybe have just been absolutely distraught with their failed lives out there in the so-called reality, and they have imploded and they've fallen in, and then they will wake up. And that pretty well was my story. And if you want a real fucking waking up story, buy my fucking book. What's wrong with you? It's $26 fucking dollars or pounds. It's nothing. Reading about a real person with a real life and real experiences. Oh, you said there's nothing real. You said it's all an illusion. Yeah, it is. It's the real illusion. You see, the thing is, you know, people get hung up on these concepts and they don't grasp what it is. It's because they haven't done the work. If you're going to grasp what illusion is, what Maya is, then you've got to study Eastern philosophy a great deal until you feel it. And studying it on its own isn't going to give it to you. It's too deep, it's too profound. You will never find it by just reading about it. You have to become it. How do you become it? You meditate, you meditate, you meditate, and you meditate. And you enter into this space. The void of complete awareness. Just awareness. Nothing else. Just awareness, aware of awareness. And when you're there, you go, I know what you're saying. That's the only thing that's real to me, because that's the only thing that isn't Maya. All this stuff, it's all Maya in that it's all illusory, because you'll never get any lasting satiation from it. That's what they're saying here. That's what they're inferring, people. You know, all these trinkets and all these things, yeah, sure. You can get some, you know, joy here and there, but it's short-lived. Love, it's short-lived. All these things, it's short-lived. Giving birth to children, and you're having young children, beautiful, watching them grow, short-lived. Before you know it, you flick your fingers, and they're doing drugs, and the prostitutes. And oh, goodness sake, all right, I'm finishing up, right? Can't a man get no peace around here? I thought this was the house of peace. Can't hear myself think with all these birds talking around here. Oh, look at that. Oh my God. You see, I'm infatuated. I've had a long love affair with the natural world. I find it absolutely stunningly beautiful. And albeit it is a form of a mirage, it's a mirage created by consciousness. Of course it is. It's a mirage created by language and concepts and consciousness and fantasy and belief and desire and all those things. It's great. And if anybody told me, I worship trees, I'm going to pray to that tree, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Pray to the tree, great. As long as it's not promising you anything. As long as you don't think it's promising you something. It's just a tree, it's just another life form. But when these lying fucks start promising you these streets paved with gold and all this bullshit, come on, people. Read what it says in the Bible about heaven. It's got a few lines by way of describing what heaven is. It ain't reckoning to be very much. It ain't standing up to too much scrutiny. It don't sound too cool to me. Because if someone was to describe what this place is like, you could wax lyrical about this forever, for 1,000,000 years, with the incredible beauty of this place, and you're telling me heaven's up there, and it's got a few jewels hanging from the trees, and the fucking rivers are running like gold, and what? Anyway, I'm gonna have a meditation here now. Got about an hour left of the sun, beautiful and warm, and I'm gonna listen to all the varieties of birds speaking to each other. And by the time you get into a deep meditation, you hear very acutely one bird over there talking way over there, and then there's another variety of bird here talking to this one just here, and then now and again there's another one trying to get in the conversation right over there. And you can pinpoint all this stuff going on, and you enter into bird world. They've got a world. Look, there's so many worlds here, people. There's bird world, butterfly world, bee world, ant world. All different sorts of animal worlds. Squirrel world. There's worlds within worlds within worlds. Why? Because we've all got different varying states of consciousness which create our worlds. And so when anybody thinks that there's a world here, there's no world here. There's a gazillion worlds here. And go further than that, there's not even any worlds here. There's just a dream of worlds. It's a dream because you can't find matter. They can't find matter. It's all Maya, it's all illusion, it's all fantasy, it's all a dream. But it's beautiful. It can be beautiful. And really, it is what you make of it. So whenever you hear me speaking about the illusion, nothing's real, well, get things into perspective. Get it in context. And if you really want to know what I'm speaking about, you have to be versed in Eastern philosophy. And you have to have been a meditator for some time. Because you will have to have found that space where I'm speaking from. Hasta la vista.